itself is when my food came, which was really fabulous. And I was derailed by it and experienced a moment of pause consciousness. But now actually I'm moving more into the area of the viscerallectric. Let me explain to you what that is. It's visceral, it's intellectual, and it's electric. I combine these things. I think we have, although I don't think this fully encapsulates the experience, it's the best I could do with the available, words, at least the words that are available to me, to come up with this a term to describe the experience of viscerallectritude. Let me say it again, where it's visceral, your experience, it's intellectual, right, and it's electric, meaning it has a degree of intensity in all those areas combined. So let's go back to our person coming down the street for a moment. Someone's coming down the street, you're analyzing them, trying to assess what they're all about based on the codes, your previous experience with them, how you're trying to process the ones that you're experiencing now that might be entirely foreign to you, in the interest of self-preservation initially, but then comfort, and then maybe to facilitate, sharing and sociality after that. Okay, let's say that there's a number of codes that are so unrecognizable to you that they actually push you off into other directions more imaginatively. You have to try and process them, not based on what you know, but based on what you might be able to imagine based on what you know. Well, these are where there's feed-forward flows, so they slip out into different directions. In fact, they refract, through different media based on your experiences. And so then in those cases, the intensity picks up. Your experience becomes more viscerallectric as there's more noise. The more intensity, the more viscerallectritude. Other examples of this would be like you're driving into a busy intersection, and then you're having to negotiate, assess the risk involved, anticipate other people's reactions to the conditions, and then navigate your way through safely. So there's a degree of viscerallectritude occurring there, potentially more or less heightened based on the more or less uncontrollable variables, or at least imaginatively. You may not really be in control of them, but at least how you imagine that you are will affect how you're experiencing them. And that's typically based on previous experiences of like experiences, and also what you can do then imaginatively to consider what those like experiences might create in circumstances that are unknown to you. Okay, so intense viscerallectritude, the filtering out of noise, the streamlining of experience. Motored consciousness kicks in order to weed out everything that's getting in the way. So it's a kind of pruning that happens super fast. Other places where this might take place would be, let's say, you're skiing on a mogul field and you're having to negotiate the terrain at a really high, very rapid pace. So what you're doing is you're filtering out all the different variables that are in your way, that are obstacles to your streamlining, but at the same time your proprioceptive powers are heightened and you're intensely aware. You're viscerallectric as you're processing it all. The feedback loop comes from you doing something and then it actually working in the interest of your stability rather than instability. Or you imagine something making you more unstable and you end up being correct in your determination. So the more affirmation or disaffirmation that you get, at least as long as the flow is taking place, in the loop, then things tend to make sense. When they start to slip out of the loop, when they become more out of control, when there are other variables that weren't anticipated, let's say the Earth's moving underneath you and you didn't anticipate the fact that the Earth would be moving, because while you're skiing down the mogul field, there happens to be an earthquake at the same time. Then there's more feed-forward flow, more things slipping out, less to grab onto. Your motor consciousness becomes more myopic, more focused as you try to make sense of what's going on. As this intensity rises, the experience becomes increasingly more, not just viscerallectric, but fractalactic. It starts coming apart and starts coming together at the same time. You're grasping like as fast as you can to make sense of it. Your whole world's just come apart because you just learned that your spouse is married to somebody else in another town and has 3 children with that person and is living a double life. All of a sudden, everything that you thought to be true, everything that you counted on, all the trust that you depended on, somehow is just thrown into chaos as you try to make sense of what it is that's going on and how to understand your whole life up to that point. Although structurally, it really isn't any different. You're just experiencing it differently retroactively. So how do you basically reconcile, the new reality with the old one? Something that's changed so radically just because of changing words. Information that you've gotten not because of physical proof, but just because of words that have been delivered to you. I mean, the tenuousness of our relationship to things is not to be underestimated. And we can see them changing at such a rapidity, in different times, that viscerallectritude breaks off into fractalacticity at potentially at any given moment, any time. Okay,